we're shifting our focus, like I mentioned before the break, and we're talking about the Seahawks. Man, Curtis, on paper, I look at what they've done this offseason, and I love it. Right, they approached the NFL draft not in the way that I thought they were going to do it. They end up getting a DB with their first pick, and then they go and get Jackson Smith and Jigba with the number 20 pick, and then they get a running back with Zach Charbonnet. They touched that defensive line. I thought they would go D-line earlier. They wait a bit later to do it. They addressed the offensive line. They did a great job with the draft. And then you talk about the offseason acquisitions. You got Dre Jones coming over, of course, Bobby Wagner. You got Jay Reed as well. You got Love on the back end, holding it down at that safety hybrid spot. And on paper, I look at them and I go, they look good. But you know how this game goes, man. There's always going to be some type of question. What needs to improve? What needs to get better? And the first name that came to my mind, that the question needs to be answered is, can Geno do it again? And I think a lot of people are asking that question. When Geno was signed, how many people texted in? They're paying him too much. He's not worth all of that. He's a one-hit wonder. And I go, look, you might be true. He might be a one-hit wonder. I don't think he's going to be that, but I can't predict the future. But I think he was worth every penny that he got paid. But the question is, how does he build off of what he did last year? Set a franchise record when it comes to yards in the season. Yes, he had an extra game. Before you at me, I understand that. All right, threw for over 30 touchdowns, the only quarterback in the NFC to do that, and took care of the football for the most part. The second half of the season wasn't great. In your opinion, how does Geno Smith build off of that 2022 season, and do you think he can do it?
Yeah, I think he can, because he has got a weaponry at his disposal that most quarterbacks don't. He's got two tremendous wide receivers, a first-round pick in Jackson Smith and Jigba to throw to. He's got a pretty capable tight end room to make things happen. 2 second-round running backs in their backfield. A guy who was an offensive rookie of the year candidate last year in Ken Walker, who I think is going to get better in year 2. I think Zach Charbonnet is going to be a fun guy to watch. Just kind of, a different style than Ken Walker is. So you look at the position groups, running back, tight end, wide receiver. I think Geno's got a better group to work with this season than he did a year ago. Offensive line, I mean, I would expect a better season from Cross and Lucas in year 2. I think those two guys are very capable of getting better. And they had good years last year. We're going to talk about the O-line a little bit later on in this segment, but I think that might be the only question mark on the offensive side of the ball. So if that's the only question mark, I mean, it's probably – I think Geno's very capable of having a better season than he did a year ago. If he is going to – perform better than he did a year ago, the thing that I'm going to be watching is turnovers.
Yeah.
Protecting the football, not giving the other team extra possessions, because as we learned last year, when the Seahawks defense was on the field, that was not a great thing if the Seahawks wanted a chance at winning.
Yeah, I agree. I think Geno can build off of what he did last year because he has more weapons. And they drafted a couple guys in that O-line, which you mentioned. We'll talk about it later. You gave him another receiver. You gave him another running back. And I think with all the additions to that offense, and Geno being in his 3rd year with Shane Waldron, the offense has to expand and grow. That doesn't mean we're going to see some Kansas City Chiefs type offense. It means that Geno's going to have more freedom to do things in this offense, and I think that Shane Waldron has the freedom to call more plays because of his personnel. So I definitely think Geno can build off of what he did in 2022, but if he doesn't, these text lines are going to be hot, man. I told you he was a one-hit wonder. We shall see. All right, the next. Will the defense be fixed? I think that was probably the biggest question for most people. You were one of the worst teams against the run last year. I felt that Clinton Hurt just didn't have the guys that he needed to run that defense, but you have to set the foundation. You have to install that defense now and start to build off of it. You get some defensive linemen in there. You bring back Bobby. I think Bobby was out of necessity. If Jordan Brooks doesn't go down, you probably don't bring him in, but he's here, and I'm happy. You're bringing Devin Bush because Cody Barton is gone, and then you got Julian. Is Julian Love? I keep messing the same. I want to call him Justin. It's Julian Love, right?
Yeah.
Julian Love on the back end. I look at the defense, and I say, they should be better. You got another lockdown corner on the other side, right? Tariq Woolen coming back from a minor surgery. He should be okay. You still got the old dogs in the back. Jamal has to be healthy. But to me, there's no way this defense can't be better than it was last year, just based off of what you did during offseason.
I think this past offseason they did a much better job of matching personnel to their scheme. whereas they weren't trying to fit a square peg in a round hole with a lot of these guys who were 4-3 players being forced to run a 3-4. To me, they're still missing that huge nose tackle that a lot of great 3-4 teams have in the middle of that defensive line. But I do think the pieces are there for the defense to be better this season. I think the secondary depth is the best we've seen in a long time. There were a couple of years ago where the Seahawks had Shaquille Griffin, they had Quentin Dunbar, Jamal Adams, and I think Quandre Diggs. And that secondary area was like, oh, man, the Seahawks are going to get back to what they used to be in the secondary. And that obviously didn't happen that season. Quentin Dunbar was a massive disappointment. He had all of his off-the-field issues that season, but then when he was playing just was very ineffective. So I wonder if people are a little hesitant to crown this secondary based off of the scars from that 2020 season where the defense just couldn't stop anybody through the air. But I think this group is going to be a lot better. Tariq Woolen had a phenomenal rookie season, generating a ton of turnovers. Kobe Bryant had plenty of forced fumbles. I'm excited to see what Devin Witherspoon can do. He's a guy that looks like he's going to be generating a lot of turnovers too, in multiple ways, not just picking the ball off, but maybe forcing fumbles as well. Defensively, I think they will be better, and what they need to be in order to have a shot in the NFC West this season, and to even have a shot in the NFC, is they need to be in the top half of the NFL in terms of total defense. They cannot be a bottom 5 team. They cannot be a bottom 10 team the way they've been for, the last half decade. This is Pete Carroll's bread and butter, right? He is a defense-first coach. It's time for this team's defense to take on the personality of its coach, to really play up to the expectations that have been placed here in Seattle.